Hello human beings, PowerGamer here. If you ever feel bad about what name your parents gave you, just remember it could always be worse. Like, they could have tried to incorporate your hometown into your name. Hey, that's basically what Nintendo did with these.
Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS and Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Two games bound together for eternity, and even still, people have to remind themselves that they even happened in the first place. I think I can get away with saying that these are the least talked about games in the series. It was unique that we got two games instead of just one, and one of those was the first handheld entry in the series, but even still, they don't get as much attention anymore. They were a big deal when they came out, but after Ultimate, people very quickly moved on, and don't go back to either of these as much as Melee, Brawl, or even the original. They were first announced at E3 2011 when Satoru Iwata revealed that a new game in the series was being planned for both the Wii U and the 3DS. At the time, Masahiro Sakurai was working on Kid Icarus Uprising, so with him once again set to direct the project, development didn't begin until Uprising was completed. It was later announced to be a joint project between Bandai Namco Studios and Sakurai's studio Sora LDT, with a few other companies coming in for assistance. It was formally revealed at E3 2013, where Sakurai stated that the game's balance was intended to be a good middle ground between how highly competitive Melee was and how much more casual Brawl was. Like the previous two games, several updates were given on every weekday on the game's official website, as well as through the Miiverse feature on both systems. The hype for Smash 4 wasn't quite on the same level as Brawl's was, but people were still crazy excited for this game. Since Brawl had formerly introduced third-party characters to the series, this game built on that idea, which generated even more buzz for potential characters that could be added. There were all kinds of rumors going around at this time, with one of the biggest ones being that Rayman was going to be a playable character, but he ended up only being a trophy. They decided to give each version a separate release date so that they would have more time to breathe, and also give them more time to fix any potential issues that came at launch. But sadly, the entire character roster ended up being leaked before all of them were officially announced, so that kinda spoiled the fun. Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS was released on September 13th, 2014 in Japan, October 3rd in Europe and North America, and October 4th in Australia, while Super Smash Bros. For Wii U was released in North America on November 21st, followed by Europe on November 28th, Australia on November 29th, and finally Japan on December 6th. No idea why Japan got the Wii U version last. Reception for the 3DS was pretty high, and the Wii U was even higher. In general, the praise still wasn't quite on the same level as Melee, but it did have less people disappointed in it than Brawl. The 3DS version managed to sell 9.65 million copies, while the Wii U version sold 5.38, making them the 8th and 4th best-selling games on their respective consoles. In fact, a lot of people bought a Wii U primarily for Smash Bros., with maybe a few other games like Mario Kart 8 and Mario Maker, but despite those sales, people don't really talk about this game/games as much as the other titles in the series, which kinda makes sense when you think about it. The first game started it all, Melee was a massive step forward, Brawl was divisive, but still very ambitious, and a lot of people grew up with it, and Ultimate is the series' crowning achievement, yet 4 just kinda happened. It didn't really try anything super distinct, it was just another Smash game. The only thing that really set it apart was that there were two versions.
Technically speaking, Wii U was my first proper exposure to the Super Smash Bros. Series, though even then it was just watching gameplay footage of it on YouTube, and I didn't hear about 3DS until a few years later. As of now, these are the only two Smash Bros. Games I have not played yet, and yes, I will be looking at both versions since I count them both as one game for reasons I'll be getting into later. For now, let's just pop the handheld version of my 3DS, the console version on my Wii U, and get the show on the road. Huh? What are you guys doing here? You're not supposed to be here for another 7 to 18 minutes.
Well, I cleared my entire schedule for this, so I expect that time to be put to good use. Time is money, after all.
I've been waiting for 3 days for this.
I called you yesterday.
I'm bad with time, okay?
Also, why is she here?
Yeah, T's busy filming a commercial in Scandinavia right now, so I called Stella instead.
Well, at least we know what the box he was talking about was.
Oh, wait a second. We're not actually going in there, are we?
Unfortunately, the shack is being used for a funeral right now, so I couldn't rent it this week, so unless you guys have a place, we're either going in here or we're screwed.
Fine, we'll use my house.
I knew you'd come around eventually.
Don't push it.
Well, first impressions are not that great, since the 3DS version doesn't have an opening, and the Wii U version is honestly kinda underwhelming. It's not bad, but the song isn't very memorable, and it uses a lot of clips from trailers that have a completely different art style than the rest of it, so it feels like it was just kinda slapped together. I think this might actually be the weakest opening in the series, but once we get through that, we can hop into some matches. Presentation-wise, this is easily the best in the series so far. The 3DS version looks really impressive for a handheld system. They give all of the characters these very thick outlines so you can spot them easily on a small screen, but it doesn't look washed out, which is great. And the Wii U version looks absolutely gorgeous. The colors are so vibrant, and the characters' expressions and animations have so much personality. It's fantastic. Plus, the soundtrack is amazing, as is standard for the series. And here's where we finally answer the biggest question on everybody's mind.
How can I cut benefits for my workers?
No.
Why do frog legs taste like chicken?
No.
Who was the most important leader in the Roman Empire?
Well, that is a good one, but I was more referring to are Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS the same game in different fonts, or different games that are slightly connected? Yes.
That wasn't a yes or no question.
The core gameplay of each version is roughly the same, and they feature identical characters and items, but the stages and modes have some big differences. So they're not completely separate entries, but they're not really the exact same thing either. They're more like two halves of one whole. I think that's why they went with such a basic subtitle, since they couldn't give them the exact same name, but they also couldn't really give them different ones either. This way you know that they are closely linked, yet they are going to be the exact same thing on both systems. But even then, most people just collectively refer to them as Smash 4, since they're the fourth game in the series. Hey, wait a minute. But anyways, let's take a look at that character roster. Well, for starters, both versions have by far the least amount of unlockables since the original game on the N64. The 3DS version has 12 unlockable characters with 7 unlockable stages, and the Wii U version has only 8 unlockable characters with 6 unlockable stages. This is by far the easiest game in the series to unlock everything besides the first one, since the process of doing so is really basic. You don't have to play 200 versus matches or go through an 8-hour story mode or clear 51 event matches that end with some of the most brutal things I've ever seen. Most of it is just playing classic mode with specific settings, doing a few event matches, or playing 3 or 4 versus matches with certain characters. Speaking of which, the character roster has once again been expanded, though it has also been slightly reduced. Remember how Brawl cut 5 characters from Melee? Well, this one cut quite a few more. Part of this was since they wanted both versions to have identical rosters, the more complex characters were removed or split apart since the 3DS version wouldn't be able to handle them very well. Zelda and Sheik were split into 2 distinct characters, as well as Samus and Zero Suit Samus, which I don't really mind honestly since it gives them more expanded movesets. But the Ice Climbers were sadly cut, and Pokemon Trainer was reduced to just Charizard. They didn't even give Squirtle or Ivysaur their own slots, which is pretty lame. On top of those, Wolf, Lucas, and Snake were cut for completely unknown reasons.
So I don't get to play as a super soldier this time?
No, but you at least get to play as an edgy angel.
I like that deal.
Thankfully, we still get a pretty solid selection of new characters. We have Bowser Jr. and Rosalina and Luma from Mario, which are both great additions, plus Dr. Mario comes back. Neat, I guess. Greninja from Pokemon, because there's always got to be a new pocket monster as well. Robin and Lucina from Fire Emblem, which makes sense given how their game, Awakening, completely saved that series. And Palutena and Dark Pit from Kid Icarus, which are pretty cool. But surprisingly, that's it for characters from series that already had representation. These games were much more about giving some new franchises their chance to shine, which I am all for. There's Villager from Animal Crossing, another series that had a massive spike in popularity at the time, so good to give it some love. Wii Fit Trainer from Wii Fit. Imagine your personal trainer giving you a workout that was just beating the crap out of you. Shulk from Xenoblade Chronicles, a character that I honestly keep forgetting is in the game. I should really play this at some point. Little Mac from Punch-Out, since his Wii game was the most love he would ever get after the NES. And of course, our big retro revival, that being Duck Hunt, the dog and the bird from Duck Hunt. And we can't forget about the 2 new third-party characters, Mega Man from Mega Man and Pac-Man from Pac-Man. Honestly, some really cool additions, especially since the company that made Pac-Man was the one developing the game. But this game also lets you use Mii characters, which can be put into 3 classes, Brawler, Sword Fighter, and Gunner. I think this really should have been in the Wii game, but who cares? Now you can finally have a battle with yourself, cartoon characters, Muppets, historical figures, and whoever had this Wii U before me.
You have no idea how long I've wanted to hear you say that.
Plus, this game allows for different characters to be used as skins, so they don't take up a whole slot. Bowser Jr. can turn into the other Koopalings, Olimar can turn into Alf, and you can use the male and female Villager and Wii Fit Trainer. And since I can do multiplayer already, let's take a look at the stages. We of course have Battlefield and Final Destination returning, but the Wii U version also gives us Big Battlefield. It's the same thing, but bigger. Aside from the 2 staples, both versions only share 4 stages. Wily Castle from Mega Man, Boxing Ring from Punch-Out, Gowar Plains from Xenoblade Chronicles, and Duck Hunt from Duck Hunt. They were really not original with those names. Exclusive to the 3DS versions, we have 3D Land and Golden Plains from Mario, plus Rainbow Road and Paper Mario for some spin-off representation, Gerudo Valley and Spirit Train from Zelda, Dreamland from Kirby, Unova Pokemon League and Prison Tower from Pokemon, Mute City from F-Zero, Magicant from Earthbound, Arena Ferrix from Fire Emblem, Reset Bomb Factory from Kid Icarus, Tortimer Island from Animal Crossing, and Pac-Maze from Pac-Man. Plus the series' exclusive representation in the form of PictoChat 2 based on the DS application, Balloon Fight from Balloon Fight, Living Room from Nintendogs, Find Me based on the Street Pass minigame, and Tomodachi Life from Tomodachi Life. The Wii U version has Mushroom Kingdom U, Mario Galaxy and Mario Circuit from Mario, Woolly World from Yoshi, Jungle Hijinks from Donkey Kong, Skyloft from Zelda, Pyrosphere from Metroid, The Great Cave Offensive from Kirby, Orbital Gate Assault from Star Fox, Kalos Pokemon League from Pokemon, Coliseum from Fire Emblem, Flat Zone X from Game & Watch, Palutena's Temple from Kid Icarus, Gamer from Wario, Garden of Hope from Pikmin, Town and City from Animal Crossing, Wii Fit Studio from Wii Fit, Windy Hill Zone from Sonic, and Pac-Land from Pac-Man. Plus extra stages for Wrecking Crew from Wrecking Crew, Pilot Wings from Pilot Wings, Woohoo Island from Wii Sports Resort, and Miiverse based on the Wii U and 3DS special feature.
Why can't I select it?
Wait, hang on, let me... Okay, I guess it's only selectable with 1 player.
Well, that's stupid.
And we can't forget the returning stages. The 3DS version brings back nothing from the original game, weirdly. Jungle Japes, Brinstar, and Corneria from Melee, and Mushroomy Kingdom, Yoshi's Island, Flat Zone 2, WarioWare Inc., Distant Planet, and Green Hill Zone from Brawl. While the Wii U version brings back Congo Jungle 64 from the original game, Yoshi's Island, Temple and Onett from Melee, and Delfino Plaza, Mario Circuit, Luigi's Mansion, 75mm, Bridge of Eldin, Norfair, Halberd, Lilac Cruise, Pokemon Stadium 2, Port Town Aero Drive, Castle Siege, Skyworld, and Smashville from Brawl. Jesus, this game really likes Brawl. Overall, I think we got a good selection of characters and decent selection of stages. Obviously, some characters being cut is a little disappointing, but we got some pretty cool new ones too. I'll always be a dedicated NES main, but my favorite new addition is Pac-Man, and honestly, Dark Pit is pretty good. With the stages, though, I will admit I think the 3DS version is better, which is kinda sad given how the console version is preferable. Like, 3DS has Pac-Maze, which is pretty fun. Wii U has Pac-Land, which stinks. But thankfully, we have some good ones in the Wii U version too, like Orbital Gate Assault, Jungle Hijinks, Garden of Hope, and Gamer. Some other great 3DS stages are Rainbow Road, Spirit Train, and Tomodachi Life, and both Pokemon League stages are awesome.
But of course, Smash would be nothing without the single-player campaigns.
No, it wouldn't.
Okay, no, it wouldn't, but those are pretty important, and that's where the game falls a little flat.
Once again, we have Classic Mode, and this has got to be the weakest version of it in the entire series. There's only 7 matches total, so going through it takes about 10 minutes, which makes sense for the 3DS version since it's a handheld, but the console version just feels kinda underdeveloped, especially since the minigames have been completely removed. Both versions follow the same structure of 5 matches against different characters, then a brawl against an army of Miis, which serve as the equivalent of the Polygon and Wire Fighters, and then ended off with a traditional hand fight. Thing is, the previous games in the series had some sort of structure to Classic Mode, but here the entire thing, aside from the last 2 fights, is completely randomized. What characters you fight, how many you fight, and what type they are random every single time. Now, you'd think this would be a good thing since it adds more variety, but it doesn't. The 3DS version has you follow different paths that show you what series the character you're fighting will be from, and the stage will always match that character, but you have no idea whether or not it'll be a one-on-one, a free-for-all, a giant battle, a team battle, or a medal fight. So which path I pick just comes down to which path has coins or a trophy on them. Not to mention that since some franchises have more characters than others, you'll be seeing some characters a lot more frequently. If you pick a Mario path, there's no telling what character you'll fight, but if you pick a Pikmin path, you'll fight Olimar every single time. And maybe it's just me, but I ended up fighting Mega Man and Pac-Man way more than any other characters. After 5 matches, you fight a Mii army, and then depending on your difficulty, you fight Master Hand alone, or Master and Crazy Hand, though the choice is always up to you. It's not an awful mode, but it feels kinda half-baked compared to previously. But the Wii U version is somehow even worse. Instead of going along a path, you move your character around this board that changes between every match, and this is even more random than the 3DS version. You just fight random clumps of characters in random stages, and there's no telling how many characters you fight or what kind of fight it will be. Hell, sometimes an intruder will show up, meaning a different character takes the place of the one you were going to fight, and they end up being giant or metal. There's also a rival character, which is slightly stronger and has to be defeated by you, but you don't fight them by round 5, you fight them by round 3. Yeah, this whole thing is a complete mess. I guess they were trying to make it less repetitive than the other games, but it honestly ends up being more repetitive since you'll frequently fight the same characters multiple times in the same run-through. It just doesn't feel all that satisfying to go for a high score since most of it comes down to luck. The only thing I will give it credit for is that for the team battles, you actually pick your teammates by selecting from the characters you've already defeated in previous matches, so that's kinda cool, I guess. The other big difference with the Wii U version is that you don't get a choice for the hand fight at the end. Once you reach a certain difficulty, you fight both Master and Crazy Hand no matter what. Speaking of which, the difficulty selection has been completely changed from before. Instead of just choosing one of 5 specific settings, you now have this slider that affects it more subtly or drastically depending on how far you move it, which is ripped directly from Kid Icarus Uprising. You also can't choose your life count anymore. Instead, you always have 2, but they reset in between each match, so to get a game over, you have to die twice in the same match, and this also lowers the difficulty by 0.5. Honestly, not a bad system, but classic mode in these games still isn't that great.
Hey, now, it can't be bad.
Oh, really? You think so? Well, just take a look at the credits minigame. Instead of a shooting gallery, you have to beat up the names as they fly by to fill in this picture, and there's always one tiny little spot that you just cannot get. It blows.
But they do give us new boss fights in the form of the Master Core, which only appears on a certain difficulty with both hands. Once you do some damage, they fuse together to form the Shadow Monster that you can't see the health of. It takes multiple forms depending on the difficulty, but the ones I saw were a giant scorpion, a bunch of swords, and a clone of whatever character you're using. Once you kill it, you have to beat up this core and then smack it so it goes flying off the stage. Honestly, not a bad test of skill, though. Fighting it in the 3DS version can be a little annoying.
But hey, now I can finally use this as a chance to talk about Adventure Mode.
Wait, where is it?
Exactly.
Yeah, remember how Melee added these fun little stages that were neat but only lasted like 30 minutes, and Brawl had an entire campaign that was cool but felt a little generic and underdeveloped? Well, Smash 4 decided to take the next logical step with Adventure Mode, getting rid of it entirely. It is absolutely nowhere to be found in this game. Your main single-player time comes from Classic Mode and nothing else. Okay, there are a few more, but the point still stands. There is no Adventure Mode in this game at all, and you want to know why? According to Masahiro Sakurai, he believes the cutscenes in the Subspace Emissary served as a reward for getting further into the campaign, but since people were uploading the cutscenes to YouTube, he felt that defeated the purpose of playing it, so he decided to just scrap the idea altogether. I mean, I kinda understand what he's saying, but I think a more logical solution would be to make adventure mode more fulfilling to play so there's more of an incentive to play it than just watching the cutscenes as opposed to, you know, getting rid of it entirely. So yeah, while the previous adventure modes weren't perfect, I would have much preferred if they tried to fix those issues with a new version instead of just cutting it all together. But thankfully there are still some good single player options. There's the event matches, which are exclusive to the Wii U version, and they weren't the same as before, only they're now outlined by this grid system. There's a training mode, which allows you to test out your skills with each character, and that's pretty cool. And of course the stadium, which brings back most of the minigames, like Multi-Man Smash, which is the same as the other Multi-Man modes, only with Miis, and there's now a Rival Smash mode where you compete against a copy of yourself. All-Star mode is back and works differently in that you fight the characters in groups of the order they were released in, which I think works a lot better given how many of them there are. Home Run Contest, which works the same, and instead of Break the Targets, we have Target Blast, where you hit a bomb much like the sandbag and then launch it into a giant structure before it explodes, and hope that all the pieces come crumbling down to destroy as many targets as possible. Wait a minute, this is literally just Angry Birds.
Do they really think they could get away with that?
You'd be surprised at what people can get away with if you pay the right amount.
But now let's get into the new modes, which are different for each version. The Wii U version introduces special orders, which are each tied to a specific hand. Master orders are much like event matches, where you have to win a battle under specific requirements, only there's no progression system. Which ones you get are just random. You have to bet coins in order to do them, but the higher the difficulty, the bigger the reward. These are a pretty fun little challenge that are a distraction, but an enjoyable distraction. And I don't know why, but Master Hand giving a thumbs up just makes me laugh. Crazy orders, on the other hand, place you in a series of battles that increase in difficulty as you go. You're given the choice between a free-for-all, a giant battle, or a team battle. You're slightly healed in between, though not entirely, and if you die, you lose all of your rewards. However, you can end the run at any time by challenging Crazy Hand to a fight, and the more battles you did previously, the higher the reward. So, much like other modes in the game, it's a pretty fun risk and reward system. Honestly, these are a much better way to spend your single-player time than Classic mode is. But if we want the best part of either of these games, look no further than Smash Run. This is a mode exclusive to the 3DS version, and it's honestly one of the best features in Super Smash Bros. History. It's basically the same thing as the City Trial mode from Kirby Air Ride, you know, the one mode in that game people actually talk about. You're placed in a large cave and have to run around beating up enemies while collecting these upgrades that increase your character's stats, and after 5 minutes, you all compete in some sort of challenge like a battle or a race. There's tons of variability that goes into this mode, and no two matches play the same. It's a blast, and I am genuinely stunned that this mode didn't come back in Smash Ultimate, because there was so much potential for expansion. But regardless, it is easily the best part of Smash 3DS, and the #1 reason to go back to it for most people. Now sadly, the Wii U version doesn't have this, but instead it has something called Smash Tour. This sucks. So it's kind of the same idea, but instead of just picking one fighter and running through a gauntlet, you pick a Mii and then play this board game where you all move around and grab upgrades, as well as fighters and power-ups that either affect the board or the battles. If two players come together, then a brawl ensues, and not just between those two players, but between everyone. If you get knocked out, you lose the fighter that you're using, and whoever wins gets some kind of reward. After a minimum of 15 turns, yes, that is actually the fewest that this mode will allow, it ends with a giant fight where everyone uses all the fighters they have access to. It ends when only one player is left standing, but that doesn't mean they win. The winner is whoever gets the most knockout points. This mode is just stupid. It literally makes no sense at all. You have basically no control over any of it, and the extra fights just drag things out to be annoyingly long. You don't even have to play them yourself. You can just let the computer play the match for you. What is the point of this? The idea of gathering up as many fighters as you can is kinda cool, I guess, but since it doesn't really matter how many you have, it feels like this whole thing has no purpose. Smash Tour has got to be one of the worst modes in the entire series, and the only reason I played this for more than 5 minutes was because you have to play on all 3 boards to unlock one of the stages.
Listen, this has been neat and all and fun, but are we actually gonna play this thing together or not?
I'm getting there, be patient. This is why I told you guys to wait outside until I was ready.
Can we save the fighting for the actual game?
Okay, let's get into the multiplayer.
Once again, this is the main core of Super Smash Bros., and across both versions, it's pretty good. It's the same Smash gameplay we all know and love, but the speed has reached a nice middle ground between melee and brawl, so while it's not insanely fast, it isn't boringly slow either. Newcomers can easily jump into a match and enjoy themselves, while more hardcore players can still show off their skills. In terms of the core overall gameplay, I think this might be the best one in the series. It's pretty clear Smash 4's focus was more on refining what worked in the previous games rather than really pushing the series forward with new gimmicks and modes. Because of this, the single-player stuff feels a little lacking, but the multiplayer stuff works really well. It doesn't quite reach the same chaotic nature of Melee, but it's still a fun multiplayer experience. Though this game can still get pretty hectic, and part of that is due to the items. Yep, we've got all kinds of new ones in this game, and some of them are frankly busted. You got this giant fan thing that blows wind, which can easily push other players off the edge. X-bombs from Kid Icarus Uprising that make giant cross streams of lava and do massive damage. The Beetle and the Galaga enemy can cause you to die instantly if you get caught by them. And the special flags just straight up gives you an extra life, which can seriously turn the battle in your favor. Plus, some older items have been tweaked. Like, in addition to a Pokeball, you can pick up a Master Ball, which is guaranteed to have a legendary Pokemon in it, and those things can mess you up. The final smashes were also slightly altered. Some of them are the same as they were in Brawl, but others are completely different, which in some cases was entirely for the best. And if you think that wasn't enough to make this game crazy, you can now have up to 8 players battling at the same time. It's only available on specific stages, but it leads to absolute anarchy and chaos, which makes multiplayer even more ridiculous than it already was, and classic mode insanely annoying, since you will always end up with one 6 or 8 player fight, sometimes 2.
Well, that just seems impractical.
Yeah, who the hell would actually be able to get 8 people in the same place at the same time for the same purpose?
Well, you know, it's actually pretty easy if you pay them.
But what also makes this game pretty hectic are the stages. Some of these hazards are absolutely ridiculous, and a large part of that comes from the addition of stage bosses. With some of them, a giant enemy that attacks everyone will randomly show up, like the Yellow Devil in Wily Castle or Ridley in Pyrosphere. There's usually some kind of reward for killing them, like a power boost or them joining your side, and these vary in quality. Ridley, the stage is big enough for him to be avoidable, but the Yellow Devil is honestly really annoying since he takes up so much space. There's also some weird stuff like the Flying Man and Magic Ant who joins whichever player touches him first, and the Great Cave Offensive, where the only way to kill your opponents is by hitting them into the lava.
Anyone who agrees the stage shouldn't have been included, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, this one sucks.
Another addition is the ability to customize each character. You can apply these stat buffs to each character that improve attack, defense, or speed while lowering the other ones, and everybody has 3 or 4 different moves that you can switch out for each button combination. Sounds like a really cool idea, but unfortunately the process of unlocking these extra moves works exactly the same as getting the trophies in that they are completely random and you can get duplicates. So it may seem like a fun way to have more strategy and gameplay styles, just ends up being a complete waste of time. And if that wasn't bad enough, exchanging special moves between versions is the only way you can actually connect to the 3DS and Wii U versions of this game together. Talk about a huge letdown. But here's the thing about the multiplayer in this game, it's not very accessible. The 3DS versions of the game not only requires you to have multiple systems for multiplayer, but it also requires you to have multiple copies of the game. Yeah, for some baffling reason, Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS does not offer download play, so it doesn't matter how many people own a 3DS, if they don't all have their own copy of the game, the standard versus matches are either by yourself or with one other person if you're lucky.
Wait, so then why are we even here at all?
Well, I'm sorry, but only one of you actually has a copy of the game, and that's not my fault.
Well, you could have just bought more copies of the game.
I'm not gonna make purchases that aren't essential. Why would I buy the same game 4 times?
Don't you have 15 copies of Wii Music?
Yeah, but that's different. Those aren't games, those are building materials.
But I guess I should be grateful that, like in Brawl, you can just fight random CPU opponents without going through the side modes.
You know you can do that since the original game, right?
What?
Free for all! Game set!
Well, I'm an idiot.
That you are.
Now on the Wii U version, it's a lot better, since the console only requires you to have multiple controllers, and the game offers you plenty of control schemes. There's the Wii U gamepad, Wii Remote, the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, the Pro Controller, and they even made an adapter that allows you to use GameCube controllers for this game and this game only, to the point where they even made new GameCube controllers with the Smash logo on it. I'm telling you, people worship this thing. Sadly, I don't have the GameCube adapter, nor any Pro Controllers, but luckily they give you an option to connect the 3DS to the Wii U, so it can serve as a controller for Smash 4. Oh sure, you can download that, but you can't download the actual game? Whatever. It serves as a passable method of playing the game with multiple people if you don't have enough controllers.
Says the one using the gamepad.
Hey, you're still kicking all of our butts.
Well, yes, but I could be kicking them more.
If you're unhappy, we could switch.
Ooh, yay, wonderful.
Obviously, this isn't the most ideal method, since the 3DS only has one stick in the form of the circle pad, so much like using a Wii Remote, you're back to the original game's control scheme. On the Wii U, this is kind of annoying, but at least it's an option. Meanwhile, on the 3DS, it's required since, well, it's the whole freaking console. They did later release the Circle Pad Pro, but I don't think it's compatible with this game, and if it is, it doesn't matter because I don't own one. Admittingly, I could have prepared for this game a lot better.
You think?
So yeah, the multiplayer of this game is really good, though I will admit, part of me does prefer how it worked in Melee. I mean, not only was it a lot easier to get going, since you only need 4 controllers for the optimal setup, you didn't need an adapter or anything, but the speed just made things a lot more interesting, and the stage selection was overall much better. Smash 4 still has some great stages, but it also has a lot more duds. Some of which are its own creation, like the Great Cave Offensive and Pac-Land, while others are leftovers like 75mm. Seriously, why do they choose to bring that one back, but not something more fun and creative like Pokefloat or Frigate Orpheon? Smash 3DS has some better picks, but even then they're not all winners, and like previously mentioned, the control setup is less than desirable, and the process of actually playing with other people is way more of a hassle. Smash 4 kinda ends up in this weird middle ground where there have been a lot of improvements, but the single player isn't as fun as Brawl, and the multiplayer isn't as fun as Melee, so while this game is really good, it ends up being one of the weaker entries in the series, at least for me anyway. But this game did have a few more big additions to the series that unfortunately I can't actually show off. It was the first one to have actually good online, that has since been shut down. It introduced Amiibo, not just to the series, but the world in general. The first line of Amiibo was for Super Smash Bros., and people went nuts for these little things, but all the ones I own are linked to Smash Ultimate, so I can't actually use them in this game, and this was the first game in the series to have DLC, which is no longer purchasable since the Wii U and 3DS eShop closed down before I got either of these games.
That's it. I'm out.
Wait, don't you live here?
Honestly, I'm not too broken up about this, since it means I have fewer stages to show off and characters to run through classic mode with. But yeah, this game actually had extra characters and stages you could purchase. Some of it was brand new, while others were from older games. For characters, we have both Roy and Mewtwo coming back from Melee, as well as Lucas, which isn't as exciting since he was literally in the last game, but whatever. But we also had 4 new characters added, the first of which being Ryu from Street Fighter. This was pretty cool. Street Fighter is arguably the most iconic fighting game series of all time, so having it be represented in this giant fighting game crossover felt like a given. But it felt like the exact opposite of a given, in that it seemed completely impossible, was the second character, Cloud from Final Fantasy. Oh my God, that was nuts! Not only was Final Fantasy VII a game prominent for not being on a Nintendo console when it was released, but Cloud became the first character in Smash Bros. To have almost no Nintendo connection whatsoever. And sure, Final Fantasy VII has since been ported to the Switch, but even still, this was huge, and really meant that anyone could join Super Smash Bros., even if they themselves had no connection with Nintendo. I mean, the first 6 Final Fantasy games were Nintendo exclusive on release, and ported to some of their handhelds, but those games didn't have Cloud in them, and then the third DLC character was Corrin from Fire Emblem.
Yay!
Yeah, after 2 third-party characters with no Smash representation whatsoever, this felt kinda disappointing. Not only is Corrin from a game that isn't very popular among the series fans, but the base game already added 2 Fire Emblem characters. So the fact that we were getting a third one that even fans weren't too excited about was the straw that broke the camel's back. Everyone complains about how many Fire Emblem characters are in Smash now, and I can almost guarantee that would not happen, or at least not as often, if it wasn't for Corrin. But thankfully, the final character made up for it, Bayonetta from Bayonetta. I don't think anyone actually expected her to make it in. Sure, Snake was technically the first M-rated character to join Smash, but he's nowhere near as overt as Bayonetta, so the fact that she joined was awesome. That is until people realized how overpowered she was, but whatever. The DLC also gave us some new stages, which are the same in each version. They brought back 3 stages from the original game, those being Peach's Castle, Hyrule Temple, and Dreamland, and for the new stages, we got Super Mario Maker from Mario, plus 1 stage for each of the interesting new characters. Suzaku Castle from Street Fighter, Midgar from Final Fantasy, and Umbra Clock Tower from Bayonetta, plus the Wii U version also added Pirate Ship from Brawl. Honestly, a pretty solid selection of stages. They also gave you the option of purchasing Mii costumes, which was a nice little compromise for characters that didn't make their way into the actual game, and they all cost less than $1, so if you only wanted 1 or 2, it wasn't much of a money sink.
What happens if you buy all of them?
Well, then you just wasted a stupid amount of money.
Well, you could have told me that earlier.
Hey, shut your pie hole, young man! Money is not stupid.
I guess all that's left to talk about is the unlockables. I never actually went over these. As previously stated, in the 3DS version, almost every character is unlocked by beating Classic Mode. You unlock Ness by beating it once, Falco by beating it without continuing, Lucina for beating it as Marth without continuing, Dr. Mario with Mario on at least 4 intensity, Ganondorf with Link or Zelda on at least 5 intensity, Bowser Jr. with Bowser on at least 6 intensity, Duck Hunt by beating it with 8 characters, and Mr. Game & Watch by beating it with 10 characters. You also unlock Wario by beating 100-man Smash, Rob by collecting 200 different trophies, and Jigglypuff by getting 30 different equipment items. The stages you unlock are Balloon Fight for using Villager 3 times in versus mode, Mute City for winning 3 versus matches with Captain Falcon, Dreamland for using Kirby's Final Smash, Pac-Maze for using Pac-Man's Final Smash, Magic Ant for unlocking Ness, WarioWare Inc. for unlocking Wario, and Flat Zone 2 for unlocking Mr. Game & Watch. Though for some reason, the unlockables are tied to specific challenges, and you have to clear the first page to unlock the second one, which is where Flat Zone 2 is, so that's stupid. Now for the Wii U version, the only unlockable characters are Falco for beating Classic Mode once, Lucina for beating it on 5.5 or higher, Mr. Game & Watch for beating it above 2 with 5 characters, Wario for beating 100-man Smash again, Dark Pit for beating All-Star Mode on normal, Dr. Mario for beating a hard Master Order, Rob for beating Crazy Orders after at least 8 rounds, and Duck Hunt for getting 1 KO and Cruel Smash. Word of advice, you can cheese it easily with Lucario. And for the stages, you unlock Congo Jungle 64, Smashville, and Pokemon Stadium 2 by beating Surring event matches, Duck Hunt for, again, getting a KO and Cruel Smash, Pac-Land for playing all 3 stages in Smash Tour, that is so not worth it, and Flax Zone X for using Mr. Game & Watch to smash 100 blocks in Trophy Rush. Oh, right, I forgot about the vault. Well, much like the last game, it lets you view trophies you've collected, listen to music, watch old trailers, and play masterpieces. For new features, you can just straight up buy new trophies, which is great, although there's only 6 available per day, and the new minigame in the form of Trophy Rush, where you smash blocks to build up points, and once this meter fills up, it goes into Fever Mode, which drops a bunch more blocks, and some of them include trophies, which you get if you break them. The more coins you put in, the more time you have. This mode's okay, but I definitely prefer Coin Launcher. The Wii U version also reworked the stage filler, so you can now draw whatever you want with the gamepad, but you still barely have any materials to work with, so this isn't very fun.
Well, that's about everything for Smash 4.
Did we really need to clear our whole schedules for this?
Dude, I spent like 30 hours playing these games.
Well, it only felt like 30 minutes.
Either way, there is literally nothing left to talk about, so we're done here.
What about Street Smash?
Who the hell cares about Street Smash?
Okay, fair.
Game conquered. Wii U are really good, though probably the weakest part of the series for me, aside from the original game, of course. The single-player stuff is a step down, and the multiplayer, while solid, is a lot more of a hassle than it was previously, so I don't really see myself going back to either version of this game as much as Melee or even Brawl. These are by far the least talked about games in the series, and it's pretty easy to see why, since while they are solid, they don't really do much to stand out. But don't be fooled, they're still a really good time. The core gameplay is fantastic, and the new characters and stages they added are mostly pretty good, and the ones it does right, it does really well. So, while it's not my favorite part of the Super Smash Bros. Series, both versions are a must-own for each of their respective consoles. What the hell?
Why are you guys still here? We're done with the game.
We told you, we cleared our whole schedule for this.
Well, sorry guys, but there's nothing left to talk about, so there's no point playing the game anymore.
Well, we've got an afternoon to kill, so we've got to find something to do.
Do you have any ideas?
Me and you and me, no matter how they toss the dice, it had to be the only one for me is you.
You see, I always warned you something like that could happen.